If someone has a closed heart or lives rigidly within strict concepts, then at our seminar we won't do very well. Happiness tries to collapse our life to some very specific moments. And if we look at why we're here, happiness is a byproduct. At some moments we are happy, but everything else is also life. And if we chase happiness, it turns out that everything that's not happiness is not life. You allow the flow to carry you in the right direction, then everything really happens like clockwork, and the amount of effort required is reduced many times over.
Good afternoon, friends. My name is Egor Stenko. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been living on the island of Bali for 7 years. Today, spontaneously, an opportunity arose to talk with Leonid Talpis about topics that interest many. Let's probably listen to the maestro. What will you say about Bali?
Awesome island. The only thing that spoils it here is traffic. If there was no traffic, everything else would be just fantastically beautiful. There's freedom, there's relaxation, there's space, there's energy. Everything needed for development.
Speaking about the fact that I attended a worldview seminar, I was surprised by the energy, capacity, and potential I saw, specifically in future developments. And now again, spontaneity. That's my everything. Yes, meaning I spontaneously had a desire to talk with you about topics that interest me. I'll actually allow myself to say these words. I think you're like a new messiah in relation to psychology, and generally connecting different practices into one technique.
Well, about being a messiah, that's probably going too far, but an approach that allows many people to unite in one thing, in development. Yes, we have no frameworks, we have no limitations, we have no rigid concepts saying who's ours and who's theirs. This suits everyone who has an open heart and wants something more for themselves and others.
And speaking about the fact that all people are different, but this suits everyone, how does this connect?
Everyone, I said, pay attention with an open heart.
Ah, with an open heart. So, there are some criteria anyway?
Well, of course, naturally, if someone has a closed heart or if they live rigidly in certain strict concepts, then at our seminar you won't be doing very well.
And if, for example, a person feels that their heart is closed, but they have a huge desire to open it, is this a place they can visit?
Yes, because we begin everything we do from heart-centered awareness. This is the only state, from our point of view, in which it makes sense to live. Because this is relating to yourself from heart-centered awareness, relating to life from heart-centered awareness, relating to others from heart-centered awareness. Love is what defines our life and makes it completely different. Another question is that not many people have the opportunity to be in this, and we help those who want to be there.
There's this concept of happiness that has captivated everyone, let's say, and many people spend precious time searching for, and, so to speak, chasing happiness. What do you think about this?
Pure marketing. Yes, because happiness tries to collapse our life to some very specific moments. And if we look at why we're here, happiness is a byproduct. At some moments we are happy, but everything else is also life. And if we chase happiness, it turns out that everything that's not happiness is not life. And then we lose life. We turn process into result. Chasing the result gives nothing except excessive tension.
I agree. All the time. Well, recently I'm haunted by such words that probably everything in your life works out by itself. Well, like, people look from the outside and see that I don't particularly make efforts to achieve some results. This way of letting go of situations, just living in the moment, allows me to kind of not hold on to.
I'm afraid of any generalizations, but when we say everyone, all, well, probably we're all here in different grades. Someone from first grade, someone from middle school, someone already finished graduate school a couple times. So let's not talk about everyone, but nevertheless what you're saying, I can interpret in some way as a flow state. You allow the flow to carry you in the right direction, then everything really happens like clockwork. And the amount of effort required is reduced many times over.
That's really cool. And if I actually, external factors, they actually interfere. That is, there's such a setting inside me that everything happens by itself. But there are, let's say, institutions, parents, there are friends there. They can all tell you something that, let's say, knocks you off your path. And society, it actually dictates those conditions to you. That is, if you just say, guys, I set a certain goal there, did some certain actions, and now, I see how these patterns of the future, let's say, appear in my life, yes. And many consider this that you're lazy or you're not good enough. Anyway, you know.
You want me to make your life easier?
Yes.
Listen only to those who have read your Akashic records. If they haven't read them, why are they talking to you?
I agree. Good. So authorities, those who try to knock you off your path, that's all.
Nobody has read my records. Even I know little about them myself. Therefore, all talk about how it is for you is meaningless.
Well, about duality, right? Duality. While I was driving here, I was thinking about how in life it turns out, if there's one thing, then a second appears. Is there some duality that people don't see? And maybe it's new or not?
But dualities generally exist. Dualities of different orders. We currently study in Universal Effortless Method 4 levels of them, but we live and we entertain ourselves within 7 basic dualities like life-death, good-evil, light-darkness, and so on. And we all choose our favorite duality for the rest of our lives. And entertainment itself consists of either getting stuck in some obstacles or trying to run between these obstacles. But adaptiveness consists of being able to move between these obstacles depending on context. When you need to be kind, when you need to be evil, or a little bit in the middle.
There's a lot of talk around business, how to conduct it properly. And while there are certain algorithms, all these bloggers try to show that if you take the first step there, or second, third, fourth, or set up advertising, make sales, invest some money, you'll have a successful business. From your point of view, how is this? Is business a privilege, or is it for everyone?
Well, first of all, everyone has different tasks in life. Doing business is a special task. It's definitely not for everyone. Try doing business without courage. Try doing business without risk. Try doing business without the ability to feel and anticipate events. Nothing good will come of this. Another question is that yes, certainly, in any sphere we're in, there are effective strategies. But still, these effective strategies need to be tailored to yourself. That's one thing, but effective strategies are external level behavior. But here is what they don't tell you, in what state to use these strategies, and that's what we deal with.
If we consider money as conserved energy, how do we actually deconserve it? So that, and generally the word use, does it apply to this concept, or is it still? Because I understand that you take words very seriously. And this question of using money, like resources for example, is this possible? Is it equal or not?
Look, what I showed at the seminar, what I've said many times already, but I can't not say it because it's a cornerstone. Money itself is absolute abstraction. Each person has something of their own behind this abstraction. Generally, if we exaggerate, there are 5 questions that each of us has behind money. Either its relationship with yourself, what we saw with you, or its love, or its freedom, or relationship with the Creator, or its security. Therefore, all blocks about money are connected with one of these 5 elephants. But in exactly the same way, realization through money is realization of one of the elephants. How's this version for you?
Not bad. Not bad. And moreover, I'll say that here you feel some support, and you understand that you can push off from this.
Yes. Money is neither good nor bad. It has no sign, like any energy. Generally, energy has no sign. We assign the sign to it in the process of interpretation, but it's not a fact that this is how it actually is.
I agree. In our time, actually, most people spend money and their time, and don't think about the fact that this is the most valuable resource. How can people realize that, for example, someone works in a cafe and spends their time for 5,000 rubles, and someone, for example, already spends their time and earns completely differently, and this is all the same time, but completely different results.
Let's do this. This is a multi-move game, so let's start from the beginning. The only thing we have is the time of our life. That's one. Second, relationship with the time of your life is actually directly connected with how I relate to life. If I love my life, I automatically value my time. Next stage. Money is not a measure of time. Actually, the measure of time is a very simple thing. Satisfaction with your life. How much the way I live and the way I spend the time of my life satisfies me. And probably here you need to orient yourself. But here's the nuance. Most people don't know the whole menu. They saw the first 2 lines, chose them, and eat them their whole life, not knowing there's a bunch more stuff there.
And what prevents this? Fear, maybe. What prevents someone from looking at the whole menu?
We need to steal strategies from someone. We need to peek at someone. Because the very principle of our development, the principle of our education is built on modeling. We choose some object and we at least start by modeling from it first. We need to clearly say that if we're talking about the former USSR and so on, we had a very limited set of models. Because your generation, they can already speak more easily, but my generation is the first generation that was at the moment of transition from the Soviet Union to wild capitalism and a bunch of other formations, and we had nowhere to take models from. We moved by feel, but here's the question that from current life is 10 to 15%. Each of us has downloads from family lineage, from reincarnation, and this drives us. But it's better and simpler when we can look and choose.
Interesting theory in general. But how does it turn out that, for example, some countries are at a completely different stage of development? There's a country that already has a formed model. Why did it appear there? And another country, for example, has a model of a different level. And we, for example, can observe Singapore, a completely rich state that goes far ahead in time, and some other countries like Bangladesh or African countries.
Let's not offend Bangladesh.
Yes, let's not offend Bangladesh, but it is what it is.
Look, essentially, countries are the same units of development as people. Each person has their own tasks, why they appeared here, their own destiny. Exactly, it is the same with any country. Any country is born, develops, and dies. Well, everything is arranged this way, therefore different countries are for different tasks and are in different periods. This is very interesting to look at historically, right? A bunch of countries that were once great, then turned into nothing, empires that collapsed, and conversely, some small country like you're talking about, Singapore, suddenly turns into a great one.
This always amazed me, because I have such a feeling that this is someone's project. People just take, or not people, I don't know who does this. In terms of this being someone's plan, this is implemented in a certain territory for something to happen. For example, the desert Dubai turned into a completely amazing opportunity for investments. Bali is an island that was just an island, and now it's looked at from all corners of the world. This is a huge potential.
You're asking the usual question, who's playing chess with us? It interests everyone. Yes, who's playing chess with us?
And probably we won't get an answer to it.
Well, look, there are different versions here, but you need to clearly understand that less organized cannot determine more highly organized.
That's for sure.
We're limited by our representations, values, beliefs, and concepts. Therefore, yes, we can project something from ours there, but it depends on what kind of person we are. Someone who needs a logical explanation scheme, someone who can feel, or someone who has magical thinking. Actually, the question is how we entertain ourselves and what entertains us. There are many people who are entertained by knowledge.
Yes. Does knowledge lead you to results or not? What do you think?
Differently, because actually knowledge is a component, but not the only one. We're retrained in school, in kindergarten. We're born as feeling beings. Then we come to educational institutions. They start stuffing us with knowledge, depriving us of the ability to feel. If weighing on my own scales, then my feeling and my state that I can evoke in myself, they don't teach us this. And from my point of view, this inner path through changing inner state, I can automatically change the external world much more effectively than constantly trying to assault and violate the external world within the framework of those desires we want.
Acquiring skill through feeling. This is the formula that can lead to success.
For whom the inner path is determining, because it's not for everyone. But where this path is really determining, nothing more effective has been invented yet. Let's talk about the fact that within an idealistic model, the external world is a reflection of me.
The external world is a reflection.
Yes, you're sitting in a movie theater, you don't like something on the screen, you can of course try to smear something on the screen or cut it, but it's easier to look at what's in the projector.
I don't understand honestly the question.
Once more, let's go with the second story. You're sitting in a movie theater, you don't like something on the screen, what's playing there? You take a brush or scissors and try to change something on the screen. Does it work? No, of course not. The problem is where the transmission comes from. Yes, the source. Yes, we are the source of transmission.
That is, if you have a huge interest in life, you will see where you want to arrive. And most likely, you'll succeed. Yes, many chances. And let's add some kind of formula there. Good. You have a huge why. You're excited about what you do. And you, first of all, still add meditations there. While others, a large number of people focus on the brain. Let's think about the future. Let's make some affirmations. Let's imagine ourselves in some expensive rooms, in some other things there. But this is only representation, but no one talks about feelings.
State is primary?
State is primary, yes. That is, you can even, without imagining, just kind of surrendering to feelings and get results.
Yes, but actually again, Now we'll touch on a very thick topic that requires 3-4 weeks for understanding, but generally there's no time. And if I, thanks to my state, find myself at the end point when I already have everything, from there I can contact myself now and explain how to get there.
Get support, so to speak.
Yes, but not at the brain level, but at the state and energy level. And this really works.
But apparently, I've been living this way my whole life because I clearly understand what should happen to me in relation to, at least, business. Well, generally. Some state, I don't know how to explain it. It's, of course, incredible. Okay, topic.
And let's tell you how the seminar was for you, the simplest thing in this story. Why did you come? Did something work out? What did you leave with?
About the seminar, I actually got such impressions that, first of all, truth, this word truth, it really decides. And through it, you can change the state of relationships.
Yes, because most of life we spend a lot of energy on untruth.
On untruth. Then, questions of trauma. This is some kind of filter that prevents you from looking at the world differently, let's say. That is, it's a less effective position when trauma goes away. Possibly some others appear or remain there.
The experience that remains needs to be integrated because you already paid for it. But at the basis of any trauma lies an important moment. This is a distortion of perception of yourself and the surrounding world. I live in a distorted world, consequently I can't adequately interact with it. This is the price of any trauma.
It's impossible to understand trauma that lies at the subconscious level. That is, you can't extract it from there in any way. You need, it turns out, a specialist. You need such seminars where you come, and these traumas are highlighted for you. Either they're highlighted for you, or they come out themselves.
Your unconscious constantly scans the surrounding reality, the field, and the therapist's unconscious. How's this version for you? The therapist's unconscious is already engaged, drawn by the currents of your unconscious, which knows how far you can go and how far to go. And at the session or in the group, it knows exactly what can be done about something that rises up. And we just follow this.
From the esoteric field, this field that works. There, it turns out that you work as a surrogate, and this surrogate takes on someone's soul or someone's energy. And everyone is in this, it turns out. And how does this affect everyone when all this is like?
The field is common for us. Yes, we're sitting now, radio waves, TV waves pass through us. Yes. And there's a bunch of programs there. You catch exactly the one you're tuned to. At the moment when you work as a surrogate in a group, you simply turn on the client's program or their lineage or their reincarnation. And when this all ends, you simply turn it off and return to your own. But there are nuances. You were chosen for this role simply because you have resonance with this program. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been chosen.
That is, generally, you appear in these places already because you have resonance.
Yes. Either everything is accidental or everything is logical. Here you need to decide which concept you adhere to.
And can you live generally, without concepts? What do you think?
Then Comrade Colonel, who lives in our head, would have nothing to eat. He'd be hungry and angry. Therefore, he always needs to be fed something.
If we started talking about sub-personalities, are there sub-personalities that help you advance in life?
Yes, of course, because if there weren't any, we wouldn't be sitting here talking now.
That is, can you divide some negative sub-personalities that pull you down?
I wouldn't put such a sign, because each sub-personality has its own functions. If it didn't have functions, it wouldn't be activated in you. How's this version for you?
That is, essentially, you get the set of sub-personalities you need for living this life.
And those tasks that stand before you in this life.
Here, it gets much more interesting, because tasks that stand before you. How will you understand these tasks? Well, for example, there's knowledge like geotish. Most people dive in there and ask, for example, in this energy field, what's my karma? What are my purposes in life? Are there any other tools that...
I'm calm about such things, first of all, but this has to work in good hands, because you can create false goals and this isn't an optimal option. Each of us has this compass, and in a very simple form. When you go where you need to, you feel satisfaction. Familiar feelings?
Yes, of course.
Everything, period.
Nothing more needed.
Yes, because as soon as you know where you're going, the game ends.
And if you have doubts, well, most people are in doubt and in such confusion. Who creates these doubts?
Sub-personalities?
Sub-personalities.
Of course, one sub-personality wants one thing, another wants another.
How to reconcile them? How to make a bridge between them?
Well, first, everyone should gather, set the table, because otherwise nothing will happen, you know? And agree. Yes, who's the boss, at least this morning.
Interesting. Napoleon in his time developed a sub-personality. Or it was built into him. And he decided that uniting the state was a very significant factor for him. And he began listening to this subpersonality. This is just an example.
Look, here there are several aspects. Many things we do directly, but just as many things we do from compensation. If I have an inferiority complex, I must constantly prove to myself that I'm worth something in order to have a good relationship with myself. And I can prove this to myself in different spheres. How's this idea for you?
This is very cool because most, yes, and I included, probably, truth, lives in some state, must more than want. Because when you get into different systems, the systems somehow want something from you. And it's difficult to really choose what you want. Many different things influence.
Most of what we want has no relation to us at all.
To us, this is who. This is how.
To my human personality. Most of what we want is socially conditioned, imposed by multiple systems to which we belong. And these desires are to feel like our own in this system. Otherwise, you'll get spanked. Therefore, we choose, yes, to belong. And when people come to sessions, we really start sorting out what's theirs and what's imposed. It turns out their desires are very few.
Here, we approach the question of desires. Most people want to possess fame, power, and money. And behind this lies some real deeper other states.
In the material world where most people live, not everyone is far. Speaking only of material accumulation, does it influence values in sexual terms, in terms of power or something else?
Well, and so you don't get caught.
Well, this also sometimes helps, and it achieves social recognition.
Social recognition, yes.
Everything. This in no way excludes the spiritual plane, but we are definitely not taught the spiritual plane.
They don't teach. There's a bunch of religions, a bunch of teachings. Somehow, a person falls under influence.
Well, let's say they have a spiritual need, and you get to a buffet.
To a buffet.
Yes. And we go through these endless dishes. But a very important question, I realize or don't realize that I have these needs, but then you need to sort it out. They're from current life. I dragged them from somewhere. Are they really mine? Yes, because there are standard needs that everyone has. Well, let's say need for belonging, need for depth, need for connections with the Creator. But again, everything depends on how much I can allow myself the whole menu, or I choose what's nearby.
That is, essentially going through some concepts and trying different ones in life. You're not cheating on anyone. You're just trying. And trying on, let's say, whether this suits you or not.
Want me to say something scary?
I'm already used to it.
Good. Any gods, regardless of what religion they belong to, need nothing from us. We constantly need something from them. We try to bargain with them and so on. If we talk about serious religions, they're always united by one thing. There's some upper being there that loves us.
Yes, cool concept, Valerie. It's actually hidden in all these teachings, but doesn't lie on the surface.
Yes, but we were told that for us to be loved, we need to do something, pray or bring offerings or something else.
Or be somehow.
This isn't needed by them. This is needed by us to get into these states.
I've been doing business my whole life, yes. That is, from a certain age, I was expected to be open to such a need, to create results specifically in business. At a certain period of time, much worked out. And at a certain period, nothing worked out. And everything you don't do doesn't flourish, let's say. Is this predetermined here? Or is this just the experience that allows you to achieve some result somewhere? But I see that, for example, someone can achieve big results at 19 years old, and at 40 years old, for example, slide down, and nothing works for them. And someone conversely, they have nothing at 19, but at 40 something already appears. How does balance work specifically in this relationship? Why so unevenly? Well, it generally doesn't work out. Does only experience influence what you?
Of course not. We're at every moment of time from a totality of vectors. You don't have only a business vector.
No, of course not. Father, son.
Relationships, contexts you're in, political context, a bunch of other things. This all acts on you simultaneously and produces some results. Moreover, if we talk about us being robots, this is already a separate part of the Marlesonian ballet. It's clear that different programs activate at different stages of our life path, and exactly at the moment when program activation happens, plus corresponding totality of vectors, either a fall happens or conversely.
That is, it turns out, essentially most events are predetermined. But, as Arabs say, don't forget to tie your camel.
You have to tie the donkey, exactly.
You mustn't forget about this. Does this exist at the same moment?
Yes, I'll tell my favorite joke. A man climbs mountains, slips, falls, grabs onto a bush. Lord, help, Lord, sticks out from above. What will I give you? Lord, understand? I climbed the mountain, slipped, fell. And how do you believe in me? Infinitely, Lord. And will you do everything I say? Yes, of course, let go of this bush. Lord, I believe in you infinitely, but isn't there anyone else up there?
Yes, that's how it actually happens. That's how it happens. And what if you constantly go through concepts in your head that suddenly you made a mistake?
Because this is again the kernel. He always has a bunch of options. And most of the options he goes through are not what will be better, but where are the dangers?
Where are the dangers?
Yes, he's always afraid and he always scares you. Like any security service, he's interested in you being afraid. And he constantly tells you that overhead costs are constantly growing. The question is different. When decisions are at the head level, they're very relative because we never have all the necessary information. From my point of view, the most successful people are those who have intuition. Another question is that it can be in different spheres, but the question of success and unsuccess is also questionable. Giant studies of successful businessmen were conducted. You can't say they're more successful. Simply every time they fell, they got up and rose and went further.
Exactly.
The question is specifically in intuition, development of sensitivity.
And let's open up such a story. A little for our TV viewers, let's say. Intuition. Is this some field where you throw a request?
Sensitivity, information coming from the information field. Actually, we're subtle, feeling beings, but brains clog this with sensations. Moreover, we saw with you that if I don't feel this, this can be looked at through surrogates. And this can be looked at in real current time, but also this can be looked at in the future. Because what we talked about, if there's no time, then now I have all information from the past and future simultaneously.
That is, essentially you can appeal to this library of knowledge through your feelings.
Yes, all these probabilities already exist.
And then, choosing. Here, look, that is choosing. Your security service starts throwing at you, says wait, stop, think twice. This is unsafe. You go through this. This is a risk, what's called in our world.
The ability to do business is actually the ability to send the kernel who scares you once again. Because fear is a normal state in conditions of uncertainty. Business essentially is constant uncertainty.
100%.
Maximum you can get if you take a risk. The more you risk, the bigger the margin.
The less you risk, the bigger the salary.
Yes, therefore questions are very important. Determine what level of risk I can allocate for myself at this moment.
That is, such calculated risk. Predicted?
Felt. How much? I'm still ready. And again, in life periods this changes. With experience, you can allow yourself more risk.
I agree. Yes, this is exactly that predicted risk I'm talking about. That is, already relying on experience, you can calculate some steps. Yes, this is cool actually. Because from my own experience, I simply understand that I heard such a phrase somewhere that any fool can do business with money, but without money and without investments. This is such a skill when you snatch different opportunities in this information field, and in a bunch of energy. And your intangible resource is much more expensive than just having money. These results, I'm just saying that now, people who just sit and watch and say that absence of money makes most people do nothing. And here is exactly, I just know from my own experience that absence of money doesn't mean you won't succeed. That is, you can do business without money. You can go there, take responsibility, create your vision, and just feel and take a risk in this field. This is my idea, probably.
I agree with you. Within the Universal Effortless concept, there exists such an idea of wretchedness. Wretchedness. We're all raised with the feeling that something's wrong with us. But the whole upbringing process is built on this. You have two main ways of compensation. Either pride in negativity, and you'll tell everyone how wrong everything is with you, and how life turned the wrong side to you. And pride in negativity is usually connected with the engine not being very big. And I don't have the strength to break through these concepts and beliefs. Second option, pride in good. I have enough strength in my engine, and despite something being wrong with me, I'll prove to myself my whole life that everything's right with me. But this requires an engine. And therefore, yes, we're all different and everyone has different engines and the contexts we live in are different. But the third option I like most, this is chosenness. I'm the only one like this here. Ideally, if I deal with my wretchedness, I have no obstacles. There are tasks that need to be solved on the path to achieving some goal. My main problem isn't the external world or obstacles. These are my concepts, beliefs that prevent me from internally creating focus on what I want and where I want to go. People try to do this from outside. If you do this inside, everything changes instantly like this. In 2 sessions maybe, or maybe in 3.
Exactly. There's such a phrase, trust the process. I even saw one acquaintance of mine who made himself a tattoo that's on his arm. He constantly refers to it, trust the process. Because, and when you have made some decision and move toward this goal, all the time on the path you meet some questions there, generally, and either you listen to them or you don't listen to them. I noted for myself that this is really so, that if you trust life's process, then when you come to this result, there's always some happy ending. Let's say, yes, no, all concepts, all problems really live in the head.
Yes, we weren't told what's right. We were told that life has difficulties you must constantly fight. Here, you can tell your children a completely different concept, that life is an awesome game, entertainment. And in any game, entertainment is pleasant when there are obstacles you can overcome. And these are slightly different points of view. Many focus on what the problem is. Many focus on what they can't do. This is one option, but it also undermines them. There are no problems, there are questions. If it's a question, then it can be solved.
Question or task?
Question within the framework of a task. Will that work?
Most people take partners to, let's say, become stronger. From your point of view, what is partnership? Is this equal exchange, or can't it be one without the other? That is, for example, one person can't be without another person.
You're talking about business now?
Yes, about business.
Actually, most often partnership is a functional complement. The classic story I constantly encounter when consulting. There's a person who thinks strategically perfectly, but they won't turn this strategy into tactics because it's boring to them.
This is me.
Well, I'm telling this to someone, yes. It's boring, tedious to them, and they take a person who can methodically, clearly perform these tasks. This is one version. Very often it's a story about resources. Someone has financial resources or energy or connections, another doesn't have them. A very important question in partnership. First, there's always correlation between value systems. It's very important to take partners who have a value system close to yours, because if this isn't so, conflicts arise quite quickly. Second story, you need to take as partners people who know what balance is. Because in any relationship, whether it's business or relationships between two people, this question always arises, and how much the partner can feel and maintain it. Third question of power. Probably one of the most fundamental, because money is always connected with power. They don't exist separately from this. How a person organizes power, and if very intriguingly, because about power we could sit again 3 weeks, how much the power they organize is fair.
Is there fairness?
Of course, within power, yes. How much of this power is connected with balance? And power very much depends on form. There are only 2 ways of organizing management.
Fear or love?
Yes, it's very difficult if your way of organizing power is through love and your partner's is through fear or violence. It will be difficult, there will be conflict, and finally, most important, guys, goals. Yes, we create partnership when we have the same goals, and when our business develops, goals can diverge. When we start a business, we're in balance, and when business has already taken off, very often balance is violated, and someone thinks they're doing more, and someone thinks
this often.
This is a constant story.
This is also some kind of program, apparently written in business, where people somehow face the same thing, because otherwise they won't call it that. That is, there's a set of functions in business itself, and this set of functions constantly surfaces. That is, people solve these tasks. That is, we always agreed on one thing. Although this has already been said a million times, that guys agree initially.
It's impossible to agree for a whole life.
Possible, yes.
Because life changes.
A very cool skill is when you can renegotiate.
Of course.
When you can tell yourself that, listen, well, even if something didn't work out for you, you can always start over and renegotiate into the story you considered necessary from another point. And most people simply can't follow this. Because again, this fear, pain, trauma interferes. Yes, there's a bunch of everything.
Let's say if you had the opportunity to ask the main question in your life.
Is there death after life? Or vice versa? If life after death.
If you thought there wasn't, you wouldn't ask me.
This is certain confirmation. I want to hear confirmation, whether this is really so. Let's say the main question in my life will be, can this never end?
What is this?
Well, this life.
This life will end.
But if we look within the universe,
But your soul chooses exactly as much experience, state of spinning the wheel of samsara, as it needs. I once gave an advertisement, not very many people came, sticking a stick in the wheel of samsara. We spin. The question is how to spin in this wheel, like a squirrel or like a human. These are slightly two different states.
I understand you give this state.
Yes, I give the opportunity to feel yourself, despite this wheel, human.
Thank you very much. It was very pleasant to meet you. I hope my interest will grow more and more. I'm telling this to myself now. Got many really cool skills today. I want this to continue.
Thank you. See you later.
See you later.